Imagine the scene unfolding. 3 U.S. Navy warships are slicing their way through the confined and incredibly tense waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Rockets launching from the Iranian shoreline, armed drones plunging from the skies above, and swarms of swift assault craft loaded with explosives speeding directly toward the sides of American destroyers. For multiple hours, those 3 vessels battle onward all by themselves in those tight spaces with hostile land on either flank. Once the chaos subsides, not one American ship shows even a mark of damage. All incoming missiles successfully stopped, every drone taken out before impact, every hostile boat sunk beneath the waves. Following that, America took action it hadn't pursued since the truce took effect. They launched direct attacks on Iran itself. No mere signal or note of protest. Actual hits on Iranian ground, focusing on key military setups at Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island, which serve as the main hubs for the IRGC naval activities in that vital passage. This marked the initial instance of U.S. strikes landing inside Iran proper after Operation Epic Fury had officially concluded. You really need to grasp this right now. This development stands as truly historic in nature. Now, the big question on everyone's mind across the globe is this. Could this signal the breakdown of the existing truce? Might we be heading back into all-out conflict? Or perhaps it's a more precise, intentionally planned step than what meets the eye at first glance. I've kept a close watch on this situation for some time now. The developments over the recent 72 hours rank among the most pivotal moments since this struggle started. By the conclusion of this commentary, you'll have a solid grasp on all the different elements involved. From the fierce naval confrontations in the Strait to the urgent behind-the-scenes diplomatic maneuvers, the unexpected event involving that Chinese tanker which caught nearly everyone off guard, and especially that remarkable single-sheet agreement that holds the potential to finally resolve this war. I'll lay it out for you one piece at a time, drawing from the most recent reports along with straightforward and sincere insights, so nothing slips by you. We should go back to the origins here, since the hits on Bandar Abbas and Qeshm Island didn't just occur out of nowhere. The events of May 7th stem directly from an extended period of built-up irritation, unkept commitments, and a risky approach of U.S. holding back that had been developing quietly ever since the ceasefire started. During the height of Operation Epic Fury, President Trump delivered progressively stronger public cautions. He made it clear multiple times that should Iran fail to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, America would take out Iran's economic facilities. The signal sent was straightforward, resolute, and left no room for negotiation. However, once Iran declined to reopen the passage, the scheduled operations against those economic sites got put on hold abruptly. That counted as the first major concession. Come April 7th, Trump declared the ceasefire in place. A key requirement of that agreement specified that Iran had to right away permit commercial traffic to flow again via the strait. Iran failed to meet that term. Shipping stayed halted. Costs for insurance shot up dramatically. Worldwide energy supplies faced continued heavy strain. Even with such a clear breach staring them in the face, officials went ahead and prolonged the ceasefire regardless. That represented concession number 2. Around April 13th, following the breakdown in the Islamabad discussions and Iran's ongoing grip on the shipping lane, the American Navy initiated a blockade around Iranian harbors. This was the initial real application of pressure. A number of observers, me included, thought this step would at last compel Iran to yield, but it didn't work out that way. Iran kept interfering with the strait, yet Washington still refrained from a significant armed reply. Next came Project Freedom the previous Sunday. This involved a targeted U.S. effort to safely guide commercial ships out from the Persian Gulf area. Reports from CBS News and U.S. Central Command indicate Iran pushed back hard. Iranian forces targeted merchant vessels passing through the strait and fired off 15 ballistic missiles plus 4 drones aimed at the United Arab Emirates. The impacts reached a refinery located in Fujairah, injured Indian workers on site, set off multiple missile warnings throughout the Emirates, caused several commercial planes to reverse course while airborne, and led to school closures nationwide for a full week. Take a second to really consider that. The UAE had intentionally kept itself aside from this conflict. They had turned down requests for their bases to support offensive moves by the U.S. and made efforts to stay impartial. Nevertheless, they ended up on the receiving end of an attack amid an ongoing ceasefire. In their view, this went far beyond a small event. It amounted to a straightforward challenge to their independence as a nation. When the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, referred to the Iranian actions against the UAE publicly as not constituting a significant assault, the response from leaders in the Gulf came swiftly and created notable unease. Both the UAE and Saudi Arabia anticipated a clear and strong reaction from America to such an outright breach of the truce terms, yet that decisive reply didn't materialize. And this lack of action created lasting impressions on some of the U.S.'s most vital alliances throughout the area. This background is essential for comprehending the full significance of what took place on May 7th. Over an extended period, Washington demonstrated considerable patience. Over that same time, Iran kept pushing the boundaries of that patience, and throughout those weeks, America's partners in the Gulf grew more and more frustrated by what appeared to them as overly tolerant behavior from the U.S. This series of giveaways was subtly causing discomfort even among top officials within the American government. Trump had run his campaign emphasizing power and quick decisions. Still, from April 7th onward, the country opted for calming the situation repeatedly, despite Iran providing plenty of reasons for a different approach. That built-up strain resembled pressure accumulating within an enclosed space. As May began, the situation reached a breaking point, and the morning hours of May 7th turned out to be when everything finally gave way. 3 American guided missile destroyers, specifically the USS Truxtun, USS Mason, and USS Rafael Peralta, moved into the Strait of Hormuz for what was expected to be a standard passage. Instead, they ran into a well-organized and prolonged Iranian offensive that brought together various ballistic missiles, fighting drones, and groups of rapid attack vessels, all zeroing in on the U.S. ships at the same time. Try to visualize it in detail. The destroyers advanced through restricted channels with Iranian land visible on both directions. Projectiles incoming from the shorelines, unmanned aircraft swooping downward, and high-speed craft filled with bombs and powerful weaponry heading right at them. It represented a complete multi-layered swarm tactic, intentionally crafted to overload the defensive systems of the ships in one coordinated push. But what followed next continues to impress me deeply. The U.S. warships countered using immense power and remarkable accuracy. They employed their 5-inch deck guns to engage and eliminate the approaching speedboats. Their advanced close-in weapon systems, those high-tech automated guns, activated to tear apart threats at very close distances. Crew members operated lighter guns and heavy machine guns to confront the Iranian craft head-on. Apache helicopters fired Hellfire missiles from above as other U.S. planes offered air support and provided live information to the teams on the water. Across several hours, This trio of destroyers made their way across the strait while facing non-stop attacks. They held their position without pulling back or requesting reinforcements. They advanced steadily, carefully picking out and taking down each danger as it emerged. The outcome proved incredible. 0 damage to any American ship. Every missile from Iran got intercepted successfully. All drones were eliminated prior to any contact. The assault boats attempting to get near were taken out one by one and left resting on the seafloor. U.S. Central Command put out an official update soon afterward, stating that American units had blocked unprovoked Iranian moves and replied using necessary defensive measures. They detailed the Iranian military locations affected, such as sites for launching missiles and drones, coordination headquarters, and intelligence gathering points. Based on coverage by PBS NewsHour and Fox News, the operations focused on the harbor zone around Bandar Abbas, hitting a dock area and army post, along with spots on Keshem Island and areas close to Manab. President Trump spoke out directly to the public via Truth Social. Here are his precise statements. 3 world-class American destroyers just transited very successfully out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. There was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, but great damage done to the Iranian attackers. They were completely destroyed, along with numerous small boats, which are being used to take the place of their fully decapitated navy. These boats went to the bottom of the sea quickly and efficiently. Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. In a later TV discussion, he referred to the actions as a love tap. Responding to a query on whether the ceasefire remained active, Trump said, "Yes, it is. They trifled with us today. We blew them away. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big blow coming out of Iran." Pay close attention as we continue, because the aspect that stands out most to me isn't only the battlefield results. It's the deeper political and strategic implications involved. This represented the initial occasion since Operation Epic Fury, where American forces carried out actual strikes on land within Iran, all while the ceasefire technically held. The U.S. side presented it as justified protection. Iran labeled it as breaking the agreement. In truth, elements of accuracy exist in both viewpoints. The element that strikes me as particularly noteworthy involves the professionalism and sheer capability displayed by the American naval forces. 3 destroyers confronted a complex attack across different domains in limited waters and emerged without any harm, all while causing notable disruption to Iran's naval resources. This achievement went beyond mere battlefield victory. It served as a striking showcase of U.S. naval dominance and highlighted the actual boundaries of Iran's efforts to block access. Before diving further into the negotiation aspects, I want to ensure everyone has the complete picture of ongoing changes. This situation is moving rapidly, and the specifics are crucial. Subscribe to Political Insight Live right now and enable notifications so you stay ahead on every key update. Click that subscribe button. It only takes a couple of seconds and ensures you're updated when timing is everything. Let's turn our focus to the Chinese tanker situation. This stands out as one of the most notable and strategically meaningful occurrences from the past week, meriting special consideration. On May 4th, the Chinese chemical tanker named JV Innovation experienced a fire while traveling close to the UAE harbor at Mina Sakar. As reported by Caixin, a well-regarded Chinese business and research publication, This incident marked the first occasion a vessel belonging to China suffered a direct strike from Iranian weapons since the dispute kicked off on February 28th. Consider the implications of that. Iran had unintentionally targeted a Chinese ship. An individual with ties to the ship's operators informed Qasim that the event was, quote, psychologically very hard to accept. That particular expression holds substantial importance on the world stage. For some time, China had been managing an extremely tricky strategic balance. Beijing depends significantly on oil supplies from Iran, frequently transported using unofficial fleets that avoid U.S. restrictions. Simultaneously, China has no desire whatsoever to get pulled into a direct armed clash involving the United States. Additionally, it aims to protect its trading ships from any physical threats in this highly risky shipping route. Up until recently, this setup seemed stable enough. Iranian official channels had even announced back in early March that ships from China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and Iraq could pass through the strait without issue. Chinese vessels continued operations. Chinese petroleum kept moving. The assumed safeguards looked reliable. Then the JV innovation suffered the hit, and the entire setup fell apart immediately. The schedule of events adds to the unusual nature. On that very same evening, when the tanker encountered trouble between May 4th and May 5th, Iran's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, traveled to Beijing for discussions with China's Wang Yi. His purpose involved seeking increased backing and strengthening what Iran refers to as its key alliance with China. Picture the mood during those sessions. Araghchi shows up in Beijing shortly after Iranian weapons had caused a fire on a Chinese commercial ship. In the course of the talks, Wang Yi openly advocated for an immediate halt to the fighting and pressed for both parties to restore normal operations in the Strait of Hormuz without delay. He acknowledged Iran's claims to its own territory, yet the underlying point came across loud and clear. Beijing desires an end to this conflict, and they are prepared to express that position openly and personally to Iranian representatives. An additional aspect here calls for careful consideration. Information from the conflict's initial stages points to China having provided Iran with certain anti-ship missile systems in the past. The difficult issue, now circulating among intelligence experts and strategists, asks, did technology originating from China end up being employed against a tanker owned by Chinese interests? Iran has avoided either confirming or rejecting involvement in the incident. American representatives, such as Ambassador Mike Waltz, have openly linked it to Iranian military units. Whatever the eventual technical findings reveal, the broader strategic consequences have already taken effect. The unwritten assurance regarding safety for Chinese ships has vanished entirely. China's approach of cautious and beneficial even-handedness has suffered serious setbacks, and Beijing's tolerance level toward Tehran shows clear signs of wearing thin. This change carries major importance as it connects straight into the ongoing talks that stand possibly just days from concluding the conflict. At this point, we reach what might be the central element in the whole account. Even as projectiles flew and vessels faced damage in the waterway, important diplomatic activities continued alongside. Efforts that hold real promise for wrapping up the fighting. Per an Axios article from May 6th, backed up by details in Reuters, Time magazine, and the Times of Israel, the administration feels nearer to an arrangement with Iran than ever before during a period of tension. The means for this possible advance involves a concise one-page, 14-point summary of understanding now under discussion via intermediaries from Pakistan. Allow me to outline the main components currently under consideration, as the suggestions carry real weight. Regarding nuclear matters, Iran would agree to pause its uranium enrichment activities. The length of this pause remains under discussion. Tehran proposes 5 years. Washington seeks 20 years. The middle ground currently explored falls in the range of 12 to 15 years. Iran would further state publicly its commitment against pursuing nuclear arms development. This is a position they have maintained verbally for a long time without ever locking it into a checked international pact. Of greatest note, Tehran would consent to shipping out roughly 400 kilograms of its enriched uranium stockpile. This represents a step they had earlier declared entirely off the table. One possibility being weighed includes sending that material straight to the U.S. or to some agreed-upon neutral country. Beyond that, Iran would stop work at its hidden nuclear sites and permit far more rigorous monitoring procedures, featuring unannounced visits from international inspectors without any advance notice. None of these represent small adjustments. Collectively, they would extend any possible time needed for Iran to potentially create a nuclear device from mere weeks out to several years. Turning to the financial aspects, America would agree to phased removal of penalties and the freeing up of substantial sums in Iranian funds currently held frozen in banks globally. Concerning the vital Strait of Hormuz question, the parties would start reducing their respective restrictions at the same time. Iran would end its limits on regular commercial passage, as the U.S. relaxes its sea blockade on Iranian harbors, enabling normal activity in the channel to resume fully across a planned 30-day timeframe. Secretary of State Marco Rubio captured the negotiation outline neatly. We do not have to have the actual agreement written in one day. This is highly complex, but we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear on the topics they are willing to negotiate on and the extent of the concessions they are willing to make at the front end. President Trump has voiced real hopefulness as well during an event with military families. He noted that discussions are progressing positively and Iran appears eager for an agreement. He included his typical caution. If the deal is not signed, they are going to have a lot of pain. The aspect I find especially interesting concerns the current situation within Iranian circles. Leadership there shows clear divisions. Those taking a tougher stance, particularly in the IRGC, hold the belief they can endure longer than the American side. They reference Trump's wish to conclude matters promptly and the prior U.S. tendencies toward compromise as proof that waiting it out could bring rewards. Meanwhile, the more balanced voices near President Pezeshkian and those handling finances face a currency in sharp decline, storage full of unsold oil, delayed payments to troops, and the outlook for years of rebuilding the economy. To them, this 14-point outline offers a real chance for relief, maybe the sole option left. One additional point merits notice. Over recent months, the American position required addressing the Hormuz situation and nuclear concerns as one combined set of issues. Iran resisted this, favoring separate phases, resolve the immediate fighting first, handle nuclear topics afterward on their own. Interestingly, the existing 14-point outline seems to go along with Iran's suggested order of steps. This counts as a notable concession from the U.S. side, prompting concern among those in Washington who take a harder line on Iran and fear it indicates weakness during a key period. The time frame of 48 hours provided for Iran to reply to the main ideas in this outline was due to end close to when many of you might be viewing this. At the time of recording, Tehran's ultimate decision remains unknown. The positive outlook on diplomacy from Washington holds substance, yet challenges and points of disagreement persist. Official comments from Iran stay quite firm. Foreign Minister Zarif indicated that Tehran would only go along with an equitable and complete pact. Iran keeps generating fresh developments on location, such as setting up what they term a Persian Gulf Strait Authority for imposing charges and seeking compensation from ships moving through. However, the larger truth remains hard to overlook. In military terms, Iran loses position with each passing week. On the financial front, the strain grows almost unsustainable. This single document could provide Iran their most practical exit from a conflict they appear to be gradually losing. Allow me to pull all these threads together at this stage for a complete view. 3 American destroyers successfully crossed the Strait of Hormuz during the most intense Iranian effort since the truce began, emerging completely untouched. Iran's missiles achieved nothing. Their drones met destruction in flight. Their swift attack vessels now lie submerged. At the same time, American units conducted strikes against Iranian military positions in Bandar Abbas, Qeshm Island, and areas near Manab. The sea restrictions around Iranian ports continue without change. More than 15,000 U.S. personnel, along with nuclear-powered submarines and over 100 fighter planes, stay deployed throughout the area. When this dispute started, Iran possessed an active naval force, working aircraft, and the means to endanger the planet's primary energy route. At present, nearly all of that influence has disappeared. Financially speaking, conditions for Tehran have become overwhelming. Their currency continues dropping sharply. Oil reserves sit full without buyers available. Reports suggest troops face payment delays. Inflation levels near 70%. Iran's central banking head has apparently advised the president to pursue an agreement promptly. Top insiders quietly caution that rebuilding the economy might require over 10 years should the fighting persist much further. One last consideration to keep in mind as you reflect on this. The biggest risk at this juncture might not involve armed forces or even atomic concerns. Instead, it could be the disconnect in awareness within Iran. State-controlled media there persists in spreading unrealistic reports of success, such as claims of downing B-2 aircraft that the U.S. doesn't have in large quantities and destroying vessels long since decommissioned by the American Navy. Should the more extreme elements in Tehran accept these narratives as fact, while in protected locations, they risk badly misunderstanding the current negotiation opportunity as evidence of U.S. vulnerability and allowing it to pass by. Such an error might prove disastrous for Iran itself and harmful across the broader Middle East. Technically speaking, the ceasefire continues to hold. That one-page paper containing 14 specific points waits within communication lines connecting Islamabad, Washington, and Tehran. Iran now faces a critical decision. Accept the proposal and start the process of rebuilding, or face the possibility of renewed and much heavier strikes than previously experienced. The coming 48 hours will provide the answers we need. Stay tuned for every fresh piece of information as events progress. Join the growing audience, receiving the most straightforward and dependable examination available on Political Insight Live. Subscribe immediately and activate the notification feature so you hear first about any progress regarding the outline, the discussions, or further activity in the Strait. Share your perspectives in the comment section. Do you expect Iran to agree to the terms ahead of the cutoff? And how do you interpret that episode with the Chinese tanker? I'll catch you in the following update.